What is up, ladies and gentlemen, YouTube? That's right, I'm Chris Smith, and today I'm going to be talking about Shadowhunters. That's right, Shadowhunters, episode 3 of the first season. So let's get this thing started. Stay to the end, and hopefully you may or may not actually like the review, but subscribe also. But let's get this thing started. So the basic plot of this episode is pretty much, if you remember last week, Simon pretty much gets taken by these vampires, and that's basically the entire plot of this episode, where we have to kind of, or we're kind of the audience, whatever. We kind of see the Shadowhunters, they pretty much have to get Simon back, and that's basically our pretty much thing. Do we bargain with the cup? Do we not bargain? Whatever, that's our thing. Let's get this thing started. So some positives in this episode I really enjoyed was that I really enjoyed the bromance between Alec and Jace. Now, I've been giving Alec a hard time, and I know some people said that Alec kind of that's his thing. He's supposed to be bland, I guess. And I was just like, okay, fine. Now that I accept that, sure. But I really enjoyed their bromance in here, because I feel like that was actually one of the better things of this episode. Because I feel like this episode was kind of a filler, but for the most part, I thought that was actually one of the stronger things of this episode, because they actually have a bond, and I mean linked. They are linked together, literally. I forgot what it was called, but they have a strong bond, pretty much. And I really enjoyed their thing. You know, they feel like that they trust each other, and they have their differences, but for the most part, they are loyal to each other because they are close. So I enjoyed that. Also, the interrogation scene, and if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. Izzy's interrogation scene, I thought that was actually really interesting, because you know, it kind of proved that sex was a weapon. Even though the guy's ears pretty much looked very fake, to the point where you can tell they're different skin tones and look like they were more faker than, you know, something from like a Halloween store or something. But they looked awful. Indian Spock. But also some good things we got to see was pretty much that we get to learn what the Mortal Cup pretty much is. You know, because I didn't know pretty much. The Mortal Cup, whoever or who has the Mortal Cup pretty much, they get to control the Shadow World. So I was like, okay, sure, that kind of seems interesting. Also, when Alec is pretty much, when he saves Clary, when she's being taken by this vampire, I was just like, okay, he saves her, and they don't really acknowledge it too much, but like, oh, he saved her. And I was like, okay, that's good, because it's the smaller details, really, where they don't explain too much or talk about it too much. We kind of see some character progression and be like, okay, maybe he's starting to actually kind of like her. Maybe he gets to actually care for her or whatever. And obviously, I'm assuming it does in the books, but going from the show points, that's kind of what it is. Also, what I really enjoyed was that I thought the kind of like the fighting scenes and the humor was pretty much on point. Simon obviously was a positive once again. Now let's get to some negatives real quickly. Some negatives I thought was pretty much simple. The vampires, every one of them, specifically Raphael, was either overacted or oversold. Also, Jace somehow becomes Clary's pimp just for some keys. He pimps her out just for some keys. I thought that was so weird and kind of foolish and goofy or whatever. Also, pretty much at the very end, for me particularly, when Clary is saying, "Oh, hi, I'm so glad you made it, Simon," and that kind of felt a little awkward. I don't know why, because she kind of saw him already, but she kind of felt so awkward. And then she says, "You know, I don't know what I'd do without you." She needs to choose her words very carefully, because when she said, "You're my best friend," I was just like, "Whoa." Why don't you just slice his shit off? Because that's pretty much what you just did there. But yeah, I thought this episode was a fun episode, and Izzy was definitely one of the standouts of this episode. And if you're a male watching this, you probably understand my drift. But if you're a woman, you probably understand my drift. But yeah, I thought everything was pretty much on point. There's one negative though, one nitpick really I have, is when Jace does this. I really do. Oh, also Claire's direction was kind of all over the place. She's 1 minute whiny, and she's kind of naive, and she's supposed to be brave, and then she's kind of a damsel. It's like she kind of fell all over the place in this episode. But one nitpick, just one nitpick, is when Jace is doing this always. Like, hey, guys, we need to go out there, okay? That's my only nitpick, is when he always constantly does that. That kind of gets a little bit annoying and kind of foolish. But that's pretty much a review. I didn't really have too much of a problem. We kind of learned a couple of more things here and there. The blade still could look kind of shitty. The vampires were the worst acted people, overacted, undersold, whatever you want to call it. But that's my review. Comment, subscribe, and like. Hopefully stay to the end. Subscribe, hopefully. And watch the other ones. There it is, my other reviews. There it is. Comment, subscribe, like.